Hey everyone, it's another late night at work here at the hotel, and I'm continuing on with my little series here. I plotted out, if you're just tuning in, 14 choice movies from each year of the last 20 years as sort of a 2-week film festival. These are largely my own preferences right here, so I might be leaving out a number of noteworthy movies from the year. Of course, only 14 movies doesn't cover the extent of any particular year in film, but hopefully some of the ones I'm suggesting here are ones that either you like or are ones that you haven't seen and would like to see. So, I'm on to 1997 at this point, and I thought I might talk a little bit about how I sort of came up with this whole concept right here, sort of a roundabout way. I think it was, well, my birthday fell on a Friday in 1997, and at that time, I liked, of course, to go to the movies, as I usually do on my birthday, but there was very, very little that appealed to me on this particular April 4th. There was not a lot that looked good. There were 4 movies, as I recall, opening that day in wide release, or semi-wide release. One of them was Double Team, which was an action movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dennis Rodman. Then we had The Saint, which was a sort of a spy thriller with Val Kilmer and Elizabeth Shue, and was directed by Philip Noyce. And as much as I like Val Kilmer, the movie itself just didn't appeal to me, mostly because of Philip Noyce. Philip Noyce is the director of 2 of the Jack Ryan movies, and he also did The Bone Collector, and he's done a few other films like that. Not one of my favorite people. Then there was a comedy called That Old Feeling with Dennis Farina and Bette Midler. And the one that I eventually chose was a period drama called Inventing the Abbots with Joaquin Phoenix and Liv Tyler and a few other people. I was pretty bored by that movie, but it seemed like the best choice of the lot. I actually managed to, as I was doing some research, I found out that there was a particular movie that did open in Chicago on my birthday, but it was probably only playing downtown. And at the time I was living in the suburbs, so I didn't get to see that one. If I had, I would have liked it a lot, because it's actually one of the movies in the little 14-film itinerary that I've developed here for 1997. Anyway, at that time, well, not at that time, but some years later, I thought, gosh, there was a whole bunch of movies from the summer and the fall that I was looking forward to seeing in 97. It would have been great if I could just pop one of those videos back in time a few months, so I had a good movie to watch on April 4th. You know, anyway, so that's just sort of how it came about. I was looking at which ones I would send back to myself, you know, if I could do that, if I could actually do that. And then I started thinking about 1998 and then to 1999, because if you're talking about time travel fantasies, why not go all the way? Why not give yourself a whole bunch of movies from the future to blow your mind when you turn 24? Yeah, I turned 24 that year. Anyway, so here's the first half of my 1997 list, the first week of my 2-week 1997 film festival, if you're watching one movie a day. First, Con Air. Con Air was a movie that I wasn't necessarily looking forward to at the start of the summer, because it was a Jerry Bruckheimer, Nicolas Cage movie, and the previous year they made The Rock, and that is one of my most hated movies of all time. I got a comment actually on my previous video about The Rock, extolling its dumb fun virtues. I just detest that movie. I just detest it. And I detest most of Michael Bay's movies, but particularly that one, because so many people I knew back then loved that movie, and I'm just like, man, you know, that movie has absolutely no sense of subtlety whatsoever, and it's stupid, and it's annoying. And so anyway, Con Air wasn't something I was looking forward to. Fortunately, this wasn't a Michael Bay movie. It was directed by Simon West, who probably hasn't done much that approaches this one. I think the real credit for this movie goes to the screenwriter, Scott Rosenberg. It's a very, very funny movie. Lots of great dialogue, lots of great characters. Nicolas Cage is a convict aboard a prison plane who's about to be released, and meet his daughter for the first time, because when he went inside she hadn't been born yet. But of course the flight he is on gets taken over by some of the more notorious convicts including John Malkovich, Ving Rhames, Steve Buscemi, Danny Trejo, guys like that. And so he has to basically, he can't let on to the fact that he is about to be released. He makes it seem like he's one of them, so that they don't feel betrayed by that. But the problem is, of course, is that he has to somehow stop these guys and keep them from hurting other people and still make it out alive in order to get back with his daughter. Anyway, it's an action movie, but there's a high quotient of comedy in it, and it's a very, very entertaining movie, lots of fun. And one of the unexpected pleasures for me that summer. Then there's Men in Black, of course. Men in Black was the first of a series of movies, and it's a fun movie. Not necessarily one of my favorites, but there was a whole bunch of 1997 movies that I was looking forward to that turned out to be terrible. Movies like Alien Resurrection and Air Force One and Batman and Robin and Speed 2, Cruise Control, and The Fifth Element and the Jurassic Park sequel. Men in Black looks pretty good compared to some of those other ones. It is a fun movie. It's pretty light. There's not a lot to it. It's mostly just a lot of clever gags. But yes, it is a fun movie. And again, this is sort of like, as I said, the list of movies that I would have recommended to myself, you know, back in the day. That's sort of where this list originally came from. I made some changes back then, including the addition of a movie that came out before my birthday, which was Donnie Brasco. Donnie Brasco was, and is actually, my favorite movie starring Johnny Depp. It's a drama directed by Mike Newell, which is based on the true story of an FBI agent named Joe Pistone, who took on the persona of a street thug named Donnie Brasco in order to ingratiate himself with the local thugs and organized crime ring in his neighborhood in Brooklyn. Al Pacino, of course, is his mentor. And it's one of the better late career Al Pacino performances because he isn't like hamming it up constantly. It's a very understated performance. Also, you've got people like Michael Madsen, Bruno Kirby, and Anne Heche plays Johnny Depp's wife. It's a really good cast and just a really solid picture. Again, yeah, my favorite Johnny Depp movie. And I'm not overly familiar with all of Mike Newell's films, except I knew he did Four Weddings and a Funeral in one of the Harry Potter movies, Goblet of Fire, but Donnie Brasco's a terrific film. Next, we have Fast, Cheap, and Out of Control, a documentary. There's a lot of very admirable documentaries that Errol Morris has done. The Thin Blue Line is the one that he's best known for, I think. But he won an Oscar for The Fog of War, which is a documentary about William McNamara. He also directed Standard Operating Procedure. This was a much lighter subject matter for him. He basically focused on 4 individuals with odd professions. One is a guy who cuts large trees and bushes in the shapes of animals. The other is a robot designer. The other guy studies mole rats. And the fourth guy is an animal trainer. He corrals lions at the circus, basically. So basically focusing on these guys right here, going back and forth between the 4 of them gives you, it's just an amusing, really interesting look into the lives of people with unusual professions in their craft and the kinds of things that are important to them. Also, this documentary is actually shot by Robert Richardson. I had a little trouble remembering his name in one of the previous videos. I think it was when I was talking about Nixon, because he shot that movie for Oliver Stone. And he went on to do several Tarantino movies, including the Kill Bills. So he brings his sort of signature format style, color, black and white, fine grain, heavy grain, the strong overhead lighting. He brings all those signatures in his visual style to this documentary, so it's very visually appealing. And it's a fun movie, just lots of fun. Then there's Face Off. Face Off is the second of 2 Nicolas Cage action movies, and this one is arguably as good as Con Air is. This is the crazier one right here. Nicolas Cage plays a terrorist who assassinates John Travolta's son. Accidentally. John Travolta's an FBI agent, and he spends years hunting this guy down, and finally when he catches him, Nicolas Cage winds up in a coma. But they discover that there's a bomb planted somewhere in Los Angeles, and only Nicolas Cage's brother knows the location. So these doctors have this revolutionary new medical procedure. They go to John Travolta and they say, hey, since we've got your sworn enemy here in a coma, we can cut his face off and then cut your face off and surgically attach your face to his. And then we'll do something funny with your larynx so you sound just like him. And then you can go and talk to Nicolas Cage's brother and find out where the bomb is, right? Crazy, insane premise. Totally ridiculous. But so much fun, especially since Nicolas Cage, of course, after this happens, wakes up from his coma and forces his henchmen, and gets his henchmen to force the doctors at gunpoint to put John Travolta's face on him, so now they're impersonating each other. So you have John Travolta and Nicolas Cage basically switching roles, which is, of course, lots and lots of fun. It's one of my favorite John Travolta performances. And, of course, huge, incredible action scenes and shootouts from John Woo. It's definitely his best American movie. In this sort of gray area between summer and fall, we had a drama come out in August called Copland. This was directed by James Mangold, who's a very versatile director. He did 3:10 to Yuma, and he did the recent Wolverine movie with Hugh Jackman that came out right before Days of Future Past. This is a drama with Sylvester Stallone as the sheriff in a town in New Jersey, where a lot of the cops who live there have exploited this loophole, which allows them to take part-time transit shifts as transit cops, and that will enable them, that will permit them to live outside the city. Apparently there's a rule that if you are a cop in New York, you have to live within the city, and these guys basically created their own suburbs. Well, as it turns out that some of the money that they got in order to build this community and their houses and everything like that came from organized crime. So there's definite element of corruption in the police force. There's an investigator played Robert De Niro who is trying to recruit Stallone to help investigate this in an area where De Niro doesn't have any actual authority. And Stallone's reluctant at first because some of these guys he considers his friends. But he does come to see that these guys are up to no good, and so he decides to help them. Harvey Keitel is one of the bad cops. Michael Rappaport, Robert Patrick are a few of the other, I think Peter Berg's in the movie as well. Good drama, and a really good cast of characters. You know, having De Niro and Keitel in the same movie is, of course, lots of fun. And they're on opposing sides. And finally, the last movie I want to talk about in this half of the 1997 focus is called Abre los Ojos, also known as Open Your Eyes. It is the Spanish film by Alejandro Amenabar that was remade by Cameron Crowe and Tom Cruise as Vanilla Sky. Of course, I prefer the original. This is about a wealthy young man who gets in a car accident and has his face disfigured, and he's been pursuing Penelope Cruz. Penelope Cruz actually plays the same character in both movies. So he's been pursuing her, but when he gets into his accident, he loses a lot of his self-confidence, and he implores the doctors to help him and invent new surgical procedures because he's very wealthy, he can pay for a lot of expensive stuff, and they're just like, no, there's just so much we can't do. And then things take some surprising turns. People start shifting identities, things that he thought happened actually didn't happen, he doesn't know what's going on, he gets charged with murder, and he has to speak with a psychiatrist about what's happened to him. It all gets very confusing. And mysterious, but it's a really good twisty film. And I actually saw this movie on cable for the first time, and I had actually been out with some friends out at bars, you know, having some drinks, and when we came back, we turned on the TV, and this movie was just starting. I was just like, oh, let's watch this, I haven't seen this already, it could be good. You know, and it wasn't long before everyone else in the entire place was asleep except for me. I was focused on the screen. I was just like really tense. And I had to use the restroom too, of course. But I couldn't get away from this movie. I had to see what was happening. It's a really good film. In my next video, I'll pick up with another 7 movies from 1997. Appreciate you all commenting. Appreciate that very much. And I hope you look forward to the next one. I'll see you with that real soon. I'll be posting it tomorrow. Later.